Welcome into an all-new edition of the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show on the Belly Up Sports Network. Feels like it's been a long time again since the three of us have been together, but we're back. I'm Vince Stover, host of the Sports Stove Football Show. I am joined by two of the fantasy experts at Belly Up Sports. On the top there is Kevin Wilson. He's the senior writer at bellyupsports.com. And underneath him is Brian Germinaro, co-host of the 3rd and 10 podcast. Kevin, Brian, how you guys doing?
I'm doing great. It's always good to be with you fine gentlemen. And they were trying to test my loyalty because the Seahawks Session post-game show is supposed to be going on right about now. And I was like, no, can't do it. So I have to be here, and glad to be here.
I almost retired from football this weekend, so there's that.
It's just the time of year where you always have something else, right? So baseball ends for some fans. It's all right. It's football season. Football season's a struggle. Hey, it's okay. The NBA, the NHL just started. You can find something to cheer for. College basketball is about to start. College football is still going strong. And so lots of things going on. I spent a good portion of my day today updating my big boards for the draft this year. So the NFL draft. So that helped me take my mind off some of the sports hurt that I've experienced as of late.
We don't have to discuss any of that unless you want to.
No, we don't need to, Kevin. We can go back and talk about fantasy championships, but I don't want to talk about real baseball. I'm not into that right now.
Okay.
All right, let's get things rolling in the fantasy football show today. Let's get things started with the lead block. While we all have some regrets in life, most of us have regrettable draft picks from this fantasy football draft that we had this year. And maybe we even have more than that, just some bad luck draft picks as well this season. We've seen this football season get started. We've had injuries. We've had coaches choose not to play guys. We've had performances that have just been utterly disgusting, and everything in between. So that's our segment number one today. We're looking at most regrettable or bad fantasy draft picks this season, as we're almost to the halfway point. Wild to believe as well. We are at the halfway point in fantasy, I suppose, but almost to the halfway point in the NFL. So, Kevin, let's get things started with you. I know you've got kind of two different segments of guys. So let's go regrettable to start off.
Okay, so you're right. I have this broken up because regrettable to me means that you pick some guys and they're healthy, but they're not producing. And the first one that just grabs your attention has to be Saquon Barkley, because this guy was the top 3 draft pick, and he's had 12 fantasy points in his last 2 games. And he doesn't have more than 58 yards rushing in his last 5 games. And he used to have that in one, rush in some games a year ago. And so he has just not produced whatsoever. And if you took him as high as you had to take him, you are absolutely got some spilled milk or something's going on with that, because it just isn't working right now.
I agree. I think we could probably make a whole list of regrettable running back draft picks, more than likely.
All mine are running backs. All the guys I have are running backs.
All right, Brian, give me your first one. Who you got?
I'm going with Breece Hall. He's like a 5th-round pick, so that's kind of sitting maybe an RB2 situation, possibly even RB1, depending on what your draft strategy was. He's 20th in his position right now, only averaging 9.8 points a game. Double digits in only 3 of the 7 games he played in. And with how putrid that Jets offense looks, it's hard to imagine any sort of rebound coming from anytime soon. I think they just named Tyrod Taylor the starting quarterback for this week, so maybe that could jumpstart it, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I highly doubt it too. I mean, his name being in the trade conversation since preseason, it blows my mind, especially after Braylon Allen went down. I thought, okay, finally they'll stop talking about this. Nope, they keep talking, and it just makes me mad. For me, it's Travion Henderson. I drafted him in several leagues. I drafted him high. second round in pretty much all the leagues that I drafted him in, with the exception of one. And he's not earned his way onto the field. I'm guessing that's the answer. I don't know. He's not being given the opportunities. So whether that's not him not earning it or whatever it may be, super disappointing for me. I was so high on him coming in. You see what Quinshon Judkins is doing in Cleveland, and you say, man, I think Henderson could be doing some similar things in New England, and stat-wise at least, and just not getting those chances. So that's a massive, massive regret for me taking him as high as I did. All right, Kevin, on back to you now.
Okay, so this is a personal regret because in our Belly Up Fantasy League, I took Brian Thomas Jr. Very high. In fact, I took him right before I took CMC. So this is bad. And the reason why I say that, he has 5 games where he has less than 8 fantasy points. 5. And he doesn't have more than 50 receiving yards in 4 games. So this has been an absolute disaster area in fantasy. And there's not much you can do, though, with this except ride it out. And so you talk about a plane crash landing. This is it for me personally. And so I had to make sure I brought him up because he is definitely hamstringing my fantasy team right now.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that turns around for him. I've got him in one league as well, and I'm just like, all right, surely it's going to turn around at some point. So we're hopeful for us that own him for sure. All right, Brian, who else you got?
I'm going with Chase Brown. He was a second-round pick for me. I think many players had him around second or third round. He's the 31st running back in fantasy right now for points, 8.5 points per game. He's only broken 10 points twice this season and only has 1 touchdown. When you draft somebody in the second round, that's like, you're like 1A, 1B type piece. Like those are like the fundamental building blocks of your roster. And to take a guy that high, for him to only have 1 touchdown and to reach the double-digit point plateau twice this season, that's a huge disappointment. I wish I would do anything to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, it's been a rough go of things. I remember in our preseason talks, Brian, you were kind of being down on Chase Brown, and he's still there's still reason to believe he would be useful, and he has not really been that useful. And
I was down on him, but I didn't think he'd be this bad.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and find the clip though, because you did say it beforehand before the season started. You weren't as high on Chase Brown, especially as I was there. And for me, I go back to quarterbacks because for those of us that punted on quarterback early, now some of you got hurt injury-wise, Joe Burrows and the Lamar Jacksons and those kinds of things. But for those of us that punted and we said, oh, we'll settle with Justin Fields or CJ Stroud or name the other guy, and we're dying right now. There's just no hope. But some of us got Daniel Jones, as off free agents out of waiver wire. There's some other guys that you been able to snag possibly. But now we're sitting here going, okay, I have one league where there's just no quarterback available. And I'm just like, all right, I need something to happen. I might have to go claim Tyler Shuck and just hope New Orleans goes to him soon, just so I have someone to throw out there on the field. Between injury and Justin Fields, I'm screwed. So quarterback for me, just that middle to lower tier guys that were being drafted, none of them really came through. I'd throw Sam Darnold in as the exception to that, but none of those other lower guys that we drafted really worked out. And that's been just crushing, especially with all the injuries we've had at quarterback and stuff like that too. So
I would say Herbert worked out because he was like going like the 10th round or so.
Yeah, very true. Very true. All right, Kevin, let's hear your thoughts because you explain your 2 different tiers there.
Okay, so a regrettable pick are the ones we just picked that are healthy. And Justin Fields, you mentioned him. I thought he deserves to be mentioned because I sounded the alarm on him right from the start. And so some people didn't listen. That's regrettable.
Yeah.
But okay. So, but the other category is unfortunate guys that you took early on but got hurt, And Brian, so you and I were both high on Malik Neighbors.
Yep.
And had every reason to be high on him. He was a first-round draft pick and got hurt and is now out for the season. As you if you're in a redraft league, you had to cut him loose, and it hurt deeply. I know that.
I just have him on IR. I can't cut him.
Okay,
on IR for me.
I totally get that. And another for me, because in another league, I took CeeDee Lamb 6th overall and had every reason to do so. And he got hurt against the Bears. Didn't pursue. There's no points here in that game. Then he missed 3 straight. And it looks like he's back on the beam coming out of that last game. So there's still some hope there. But if you were hoping to get 22, 25 fantasy points a week out of him, it just didn't happen. So that's where I put the two different, because I thought they're two different subjects altogether. And those two guys, and you mentioned him already, Joe Burrow is another guy that people took high and had every reason to do so. I would have done it, but somebody beat me to him. So that worked out for me. And I got Baker Mayfield later. So that worked out really well there. But those are 3 guys that I would put in the unfortunate category because they were every reason to be, and they were successful, but got hurt. And so now your team is in the ditch because of them.
Well, I mean, Omarion Hampton would throw into that category too. Finally got his groove going, and he's down. There's several that definitely fall into that. Brian, anyone else you want to mention in this segment?
Yeah, this is a personal one for me. RJ Harvey, I was really high on him this offseason. He looked like the RB1 in Denver. I thought he'd take over even with J.K. Dobbins being signed there, but just so far, not seen much from him. Has only gotten over 10 points once this season. His future still might be bright, but at this point, I don't see him having much value this season.
That's a great one to bring up. I mean, another wild rookie situation that after what Sean Payton did with Bo Nix, we thought, this is RJ Harvey's the guy that he wanted, and he's going to come right in and plug right in. And then J.K. Dobbins, my goodness, been a stud. So for sure. All right. That's our lead block this week. Regrettable picks, bad luck picks, whatever you want to call them. There they are. That's our lead block. Let's go into segment number 2. We call it the cover 2. All right. In our cover 2 this week, we're looking at some NFL news, and we got some to go around. Let's start with Mike Evans, the latest Tampa Bay Buccaneer receiver to get hit with some bad news, broken clavicle for Mike Evans, having another stellar season. This year, we've seen the Emeka Egbuka come on the scene and be phenomenal. But I think Mike Evans being on the other side was helpful in that. And now Mike Evans is gone. We're begging Tez Johnson to be, great. We're waiting for others to return. But man, Mike Evans going down, that seemed like it stung a lot of people just because of the person and player that he is. Brian, what are your thoughts on Evans' unfortunate injury?
Oh, it's absolutely brutal. And I think the worst part is it's going to end his 1,000-yard streak season. A streak, I forgot, I think it's 11 consecutive seasons of 1,000 yards or
so.
Ballpark around there. And the fact that it has to end, not because Evans couldn't do it, but because he was robbed of the opportunity because of injuries, will always just be, it could go down as one of the biggest what-ifs in NFL history. What if Evans didn't get hurt? Could he have broken that record? So it just stinks. It just stinks from fantasy perspective because a lot of teams have built their kind of wide receiver core around Mike Evans with how consistent he is. And then just on a personal level, because he's such a nice guy, such an underrated receiver in this league. It just stinks to see him go out like that. I didn't know what the injury was at first. I couldn't tell what was wrong with him. So the fact that I saw clavicle, I'm like, that's just absolutely brutal.
Yeah. Kevin, thoughts on Mike Evans?
Because I was watching that and I saw it live, and I thought there was anything else other than a broken clavicle. They were talking about, was it a hamstring or whatever? And it was tough because in that he almost came away with that catch. It would have been an unbelievable catch. and that could have sparked Tampa because they didn't have anything going on up to that point, but it was no catch, and they lost him. And so that's a rough gig for one of the great ambassadors, right? Because he's down there, he plays, he does everything that you want a veteran to do, great in the locker room. And so that's a rough, in fantasy for him. It's rough for guys like myself that has Baker Mayfield. Who has he had to throw to? Right? So it was tough to see that. And then to have him go off, and then they come back and say what actually, did occur. And you're like, they're talking about 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And then with something like that, it seems like that would be longer.
Yeah.
And so it was unfortunate all the way around for him, for the Tampa, for NFL. The game itself would have been a whole lot more interesting if he had stayed on the field, and if he had made that catch, who knows what's going to happen from there on out.
And it's not the biggest individual loss for a team, but if you look at the team as a whole, the running back situation where they've had injuries there, multiple receivers gone, offensive line injuries, and you're looking at a team where the quarterback is being named as the MVP front runner right now. And you go, goodness, it seems like everything is getting derailed at some point or another here, but they just keep pushing. The game's still competitive. Even with that injury happening, Godwin's going to come back at some point. Plus last year's rookie is going to come back at some point too. So they're going to get some people healthy ideally, but man, it's talking about just being hit left and right from injuries. It seems like Tampa's been, the one getting thrown under the bus so far this season. Let's see here.
He just turned the corner too.
Returns, from Philadelphia. He comes out of retirement. I've been sitting here watching these Eagles games thinking the Eagles don't look right. They're winning games.
Right.
They just don't look right. And the defense is the problem. You're sitting there going, the defense isn't doing what they've done in the past. And of course, why not have a guy? Maybe this was the plan all along. I don't know. Or you say, I'll sit out the first half and I'll come in the second half. And the record's still great. They're probably going to win the East. And now they add Brandon Graham. I'm assuming he's in shape. I'm assuming he's ready to go. Brian, as a fan of another team in the East, when you see this happening, what's your initial thoughts to the Brandon Graham unretirement?
It's first one was like, come on, I thought we got rid of him. I thought we didn't deal with him anymore. But and of course he comes back against the Giants most likely. So that's just extra salt in the wound. But no, you're right. This is someone that Philly's locker room might just need, because like you said, something just feels off in Philly. Like the offense isn't as explosive as it once was, like Kevin alluded to with Saquon this year. The defense has been something. Maybe they just need that more vocal leadership in the locker room. And Brandon Graham could go a long way into kind of filling that role, because we've all heard the reports from the past that Sirianni was never the best, players coach. He kind of, rubs some guys the wrong way sometimes. And, Jason Kelsey held that locker room. Maybe Graham will kind of go in and hold up the locker room again.
Yeah, great points. Kevin, any thoughts on that?
Well, you guys have nailed it, that there's, especially the last couple of weeks, that there's something squirrely going on in Philadelphia. And when I was reading up on this, it was brought up more than once that he is in shape. That was made sure, that was emphasized. And so just because you say it's true doesn't mean it is. And so we're going to have to see if that's true and he can step in there and perform, because he missed some games last year, but he came back in the Super Bowl and just rocked the house. So if he can come back and be anything close to that, then I think Philadelphia will certainly benefit from him being in the locker room, if nothing else. But if he can come back and be anywhere close to the player he's been all these years, then it's like they got an acquisition but didn't have to do any trade. They didn't have to do, any of that stuff. So this certainly helps Philadelphia, and we'll see how it – but all depends on whether or not it's true that he is in shape.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, then he could take couple weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, to get in shape. So we'll have to see how long it takes for him to get on the field.
Yeah, I mean, at his age, to get back in game shape, it's going to take a little bit of time. But if he can go and, kind of just play 30% of the snaps to get started. I think like Brian said, just the locker room improvement is probably going to be drastic, I think, too. I think it's great points. Tyler Lockett said, I don't want to be on this Tennessee Titans team. I don't blame him.
No.
Like you should have thought about that before you signed. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, he was granted his release. Do we still think that Tyler Lockett can find a spot to be effective? I'm thinking like Washington is what immediately comes to mind with the injuries they've had with McLaurin and Debo, both banged up. But I don't know. What do you guys think about Tyler Lockett, Kevin, coming back in and finding a good fit?
Well, he's always got a soft spot with me because of was a Seahawk for many years. But as far as him being, any kind of other than in the locker room, once again, you want him in your locker room. But I don't know if he can be effective as a receiver anymore because he's up there and was never a burner to begin with. And so we've discussed this on Seahawks sessions already. If he wants to come back to the Seahawks and, ride into the sunset, I'm all for that. But if you're looking for him to come in and be an effective weapon on your offense, I think that's asking a little much at this point.
Brian, I'm thinking of teams like Buffalo and New England, up there, the teams that are in the hunt that are going to be fighting for something, worthwhile at the very least. But those are kind of the teams that I'm looking at. Like I said, Washington as well. I don't know your thoughts on Tyler Lockett. Is he still valuable?
I don't think his fantasy value. He's got no fantasy value whatsoever. He's going to be a guy that kind of comes in, gets 3 or 4 targets, whatever team he gets on, maybe 1 or 2 catches, nothing crazy. But like, if you're a team like New England or a team that's had banged up receivers like Washington, or if the Giants had won on Sunday, maybe the Giants go and give him a call. I would love. I was really talking about this on the 3rd and 10 earlier. I would love Tyler Lockett in just to give Jackson Dart somebody else to throw to because he only threw to 1 receiver on Sunday. Yeah. He needs somebody else. He's not coming here because if he didn't want to be in the Titans, he for sure does not want to be in the Giants. But yeah, I think as like a veteran presence, a guy that can get you 2 or 3, decent catches. Yeah, I think he has that kind of value to him.
Kevin, plug your ears for a second. San Francisco 49ers are beat up.
Yeah, they are. They are. Mm-hmm. And he'll go completely out of my inner circle if he goes to the 49ers.
I don't blame you.
He knows that division well. So that's another option too. All right, since we're talking about San Francisco, me and Dad are going to discuss this on Thursday's show, but I'm sitting here watching Mac Jones play, and I don't see a difference between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. And I'm going, man, I have a feeling that Lynch right now is thinking, why did we waste all that money on Brock Purdy when we could have gotten it out of Mac Jones for so much cheaper? Is there going to be a temptation for San Francisco to just keep playing Mac Jones until it falls apart? Or will it be once, right now they're just saying, hey, we're giving Brock Purdy plenty of time to heal, which is smart. There's no reason not to do that. But at what point do you say, okay, we paid this guy so much money that we've got to go ahead and put him back on the field? Or do you just say, you know what, screw it. We're going to go Mac Jones until we die? Brian?
I mean, I think Kyle Shanahan wants to roll with Mac Jones as long as possible. Let's not forget, the rumor was back when they traded up to 3 in his draft class was Mac Jones was his guy. And now he finally has his guy, and he's showing him, like, look, this is what I wanted to do. I could have done this for years. So I think from that aspect, Kyle Shanahan wants to keep Mac Jones out there as long as possible. But like you said, with that contract, you have to put Purdy back out there. It's no longer a question, and I really wish it was because I think it could be. But with that contract, it's got to be Purdy's team when it's all said and done.
Kevin, you're a Seahawks fan. Right now, do you have a feeling like I would rather play against Mac Jones or Brock Purdy, or do you look at it as they really are the same thing?
Well, if we're talking about Brock Purdy from years, past, then it looks like they're the same player. But this year when he was in there, Brock Purdy didn't look like Brock Purdy. And they talk about how you don't lose your starter status if you're hurt. But I think that's out the window on this. I think that Samson, they've already shown with the high draft pick that they don't care about whether or not they paid him. They just care about what can be done on the field. And so I think if Mac Jones, and let's face it, the 49ers have won these games with smoke and mirrors and CMC up to this point. And so, and Mac Jones has been behind all of that. And so if he keeps this up and they continue to win, I don't see how you don't mess with the chemistry to me. And I kind of hope they do, because I want them to fall flat on their face. But it's just not happening. So and he's shown that he's the kind of coach that he's going to do what he thinks is best. And so if you think Matt Jones is the guy that's going to get it done, that's what he's going to do. And to me, that's what it looks like he should do at this point.
Guys, I'm watching this season, both preseason and regular season. I'm doing a lot of work prepping for the draft for next year, the 2026 NFL draft. And I'm looking at these quarterbacks and I'm going, if I'm a team, why would I not try to get Mac Jones instead of drafting a guy? Why would I not Trey Lance, the way he looked in the preseason versus drafting a guy like these? We're seeing some backups. Carson Wentz is getting the nod over JJ McCarthy this week. So, and I don't know that that's a long-term answer in Minnesota. Actually, I do know it's not the long-term answer in Minnesota, but
it is not.
You're seeing these backups, veteran guys that have played, guys that have been on a couple of teams, learned some systems, whatever. You're seeing them perform well. And what Mac Jones is doing, he's legitimately giving himself an opportunity come next season. I think of teams like Miami. You cannot tell me that Tua Tagovailoa is guaranteed to be the starter next year in Miami.
He's not guaranteed to be the starter 2 weeks from now.
You got the Rams, who Stafford's going to retire at some point. You've got Arizona might even be looking to move on in a different direction as well. Minnesota might be looking for somebody, if only they would have kept Sam Darnold. There's going to be teams out there that are going to say, hey, why would I spend a top 5 draft pick on a guy that no one's sold on when I could go get a guy that worst case scenario, he's my quarterback for 2 years and it gives me a chance the following season to maybe draft and develop a guy, or draft a guy this year, but draft them later, like second round versus taking them in the first 5 picks or something like that. It's so impressive. I look at Las Vegas. Las Vegas has to be sitting there going, first of all, they probably should have never gotten rid of Gardner Minshew. I don't know why they haven't made the announcement they're going to Kenny Pickett yet. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. But all that being said, there's a lot of excitement right now in the league. And by the way, trade deadline's coming up this week. So plenty of fun things. Or next week, I guess.
November 4th is the trade deadline.
November the 4th. Thank you. I thought it was earlier than that.
So no, it's November 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern.
So it's 2 weeks from today, right?
2 weeks from today is right. Yep. So
it's always the Tuesday.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I guess you want to get the that week's games in. Is that what the thought process is on that, I suppose?
Yeah, you could run a play. You could learn like somewhat the playbook before Sunday's game.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at Joe Flacco. All right, that's our cover 2. Let's head in to our read option this week. All right, guys, for the read option this week, we are looking at our starts and sits for the week, and we are going to kick things off. We are trying to keep this 90 seconds or less. We're going to start off with Brian Germinaro covering the NFC East.
All right, well, my first start in this week is Jackson Dart. We've already seen what happened the last time Dart played Philadelphia, and even the loss to Denver, he was still pretty good. 15 of 33, 283 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, one rushing touchdown, so 4 total touchdowns. Everyone's busy, trying to say, oh, it's a fluke and stuff. No, Dart's out there. He's shown he can be that franchise guy in New York. He's lives for the big moment. This is a big game for the Giants on Sunday. I think Dart's got another big performance in him. Number 2, A.J. Brown had a breakout week this week against the Vikings, 4 catches for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland are both banged up for the Giants right now. That secondary is atrocious because you got Deontay Banks throwing back there. I expect another big game for A.J. Brown to kind of continue that trend. And my third one is Deebo Samuel. Look, I know we don't know what the Washington Commanders quarterback situation is going to look like, but if they have to roll with Mariota, Samuel and Mariota had a pretty good connection in that Falcons game. 6 catches for over 70 yards and a touchdown. I know he didn't play great in the Raiders game, but with the chemistry I saw from them, I think Samuel can have another big week. My sit-em is Dak Prescott. Broncos have led the league in both sacks and have given up the 6th fewest yards. I think Dak's going to be in for a long, rough day behind that, trying to get out in front of the head of that Broncos secondary and pass rush. I would stay away. And then Zach Ertz, kind of for the opposite reason Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz did not have a good rapport with Marcus Mariota. In the 2 games, he only had 5 receptions for 59 yards and only 7 targets across the 2 games. So he's not get looked at. I'd stay away.
All right, Kevin Wilson, the NFC South.
All right, so NFC South, you've got, and I'm going to start Rico Dottle. And I know that there's some stuff going on between who should be the starter there, Hubbard or not. And they recovered that a little bit. So Hubbard is not going to be the starter. He should not be the starter. So I'm going with Dottle right here. And because you're going up against an awful run defense. So I'm putting him in the game. And then let's see, Kyle Pitts. I've been down on Kyle Pitts and every reason to be that. But Miami is awful against tight ends in fantasy and in real life. So I'm going to start him. And my sits, I'm going to sit Ted McMillan because the Buffalo Bills have the number 1 pass defense. They're awful against the run, but number 1 against pass defense. I'm going to sit him. And then Bryce Young, if he's even healthy, I'm keeping him way away. It doesn't matter who's starting at quarterback. If it's the guy that's almost a few years younger than I am, I'm going to sit him. If whoever starts, I'm sitting both of these guys. And so those are my start sits for the NFC South.
All right, I'll do the NFC North, starting Jordan Love, quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, against Pittsburgh, 28th ranked against fantasy quarterbacks, and going up against his old mentor and buddy Aaron Rodgers this week. I'm sure he's going to want to show off what he's learned over the years. Jordan Love is a start, plus the heavy bye week helps with this as well. I'm also starting Kyle Monengai. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly or not, for Chicago, running back, who got 13 carries this week and looks to be possibly taking over or at least 50-50 splitting with DeAndre Swift currently in Chicago. They're playing against Baltimore, who's ranked 31st against fantasy running backs. That is 2nd worst in all of football. Tucker Kraft, I'm starting again for Green Bay, the tight end. Pittsburgh is 30th against the tight ends this year in fantasy, and Tucker Kraft has become a favorite of Jordan Love's. I'm sitting DeAndre Swift. While I like his backup this week against Baltimore, I think we're going to start to see Swift get dialed back a little bit. I'm also sitting TJ Hawkinson against the Los Angeles Chargers, who are ranked 7th against fantasy tight ends so far this season. And I don't really love what Minnesota's doing at the moment. So I'm sitting TJ Hawkinson as well. All right, we're going to go back to Kevin Wilson for the NFC West.
Okay, well, this is going to be real short because there's only one team playing this week from the NFC West, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. And so the only start that I'm going to go with is CMC. You don't need me to tell you why. He's been as predictable in fantasy as the East sunrise. But he hadn't had the rushing until this last week. So he's added that to his weaponry. And so he's not going to do that against Houston. But if you got CMC, you're going to start him. Everybody else, we just talked about Mac Jones, whomever else on the 49ers, you're going to sit them all going up against that Houston defense. They've got a great defense. They're playing at home. So anyone else but CMC on that 49ers team, if you got any of them in fantasy, you want to sit them all except CMC.
All right, very good. Let's head to the AFC now. Brian will hit the AFC East.
All right, so my first startup is Josh Allen. I know the Panthers defense has been good this year, but the Bills are coming off that bye week after, basically having to sit and stew after back-to-back bad losses. They're going to want to come out and make a statement. I think Allen has a big performance, which is why I'm also starting the Bills defense. Not only are they going to want to make a statement, but the Panthers are going to be starting Andy Dalton on Sunday, and I think the Bills are going to have a very easy time containing the former Red Rifle. And my third startup is Mason Taylor. We got the news today that Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starting quarterback for the Jets. The Bengals have struggled all season to contain the pass game, third most passing yards allowed. There's nobody in that Jets offense right now. I think Garrett Wilson's still going to miss another week. And outside of that, the only reliable option is Mason Taylor. So I think he's in store for a big week. He should be the Jets' #1 receiving threat. My sit-em might be a little bit surprised, but Drake May. I know he's being compared to Brady right now. Just broke Brady's record for, I think, QBR or completions in a game, something like that. But he's going against the Browns defense this week, which has going against the Browns defense, which has been great all season. I don't trust him. I think he might. I won't say he could have a bad week, but he's going to regress a little bit. And then my final one is Jaden Waddle. Not sure who's going to be the quarterback in Miami because Tua is terrible, and if it's Quinn Ewers, that's not much of an upgrade. The Falcons are allowing 141 yards through the air, which is the fewest in the NFL. I expect Waddle to be doing nothing this week but cardio.
Yeah, that's a conversation to be had, too. The Miami quarterback situation is crazy right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, AFC North. Why not? Joe Flacco, let's start him this week. He's playing against the New York Jets, 22nd against fantasy quarterbacks this week. And in the 2 weeks that Flacco's been in Cincinnati, he's thrown 2 or 3 touchdowns each game. He's very well knowledgeable of the fact that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are very, very good football players. So he's throwing them the football, and he's going to score well again this week. Starting Quinshon Judkins at this point, I'm starting Judkins every week. He's playing New England. New England is a tough defense, but we saw the 3 touchdowns last week from Judkins. I don't think we'll see that again, but he is clearly RB1. He is clearly effective in the pass game as well. Love Quinshon Judkins this week and every week. And then I'm also starting Zay Flowers in Baltimore this week. They play Chicago. Chicago's 24th against fantasy receivers so far this season. And Zay Flowers continues to get his targets and catches, as his targets really haven't dropped, and that makes me comfortable to stick with him this week as well. I'm sitting Jerry Jeudy. He has still had 0 10-point or more outings this season. And right along with him, I'm sitting his quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, against that New England defense. I just don't like that one at all, fantasy-wise, for sure. All right, Kevin Wilson. No, we're back to Brian. Sorry, Brian, back to the AFC South.
So my first starter for the AFC South is Jonathan Taylor. He should be a start every week. But this Titans run defense is god-awful. They've allowed, I think, the most rushing yards in the league. So expect Taylor could have a career game on Sunday if everything breaks right. I'm also going to go with the same team with the Colts. Josh Downs, very quietly the past few weeks, been racking up a lot of catches, 6 catches the past 2 weeks, and getting like 8 or so targets. So it seems like him and Daniel Jones have kind of developed a chemistry there. I expect that to continue on Sunday. Look for Jones to go his way a lot in that game. And my final stardom is the Texans defense. They're going up against a banged-up 49ers offense with Mac Jones. We've seen how efficient this defense can be. I think they could stifle what's been a pretty good story for Mac Jones so far. My first sit-em is Tony Pollard. The Colts' run defense is much better than their passing defense. And I know not much is going right for Titans right now, but I think they're going to try to take advantage of anything possible. And Cam Ward does have a good enough arm that maybe he can make something work with that. So look for them to pass more instead of run it. So I think Pollard's going to have a bad game. And then CJ Stroud. We saw it last night on Monday Night Football, how god-awful that offensive line is. How can you expect him to do anything right when he's basically running for his life every single play? So if you have one on your fantasy team, it might be time to cut him for some other backup quarterback.
Very good. All right, Kevin Wilson, wrap us up with the AFC West.
All right, so my first start is going to be Bo Nix, quarterback. Of course, going up. It won't take him 3 quarters to get started against Dallas. They're 32nd, in case you missed it. That's last against fantasy quarterbacks. I'm also going to start Cortland Sutton, 6 catches. And the Cowboys also ranked 31st against fantasy wide receivers. And Rashee Rice, Kansas City wide receiver, back off suspension, caught 7 passes, 2 TDs. And so we saw what the Cowboys did to the Washington defense. Pickens, Lamb ran all over the place. So that's a great start to me. I'm sitting Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver of the Chargers. He's got only 2 catches this past week, and he's got McConkey and he's got Allen ahead of him. That's nowhere to go with that. And then Hamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins, 2 running backs from one of them looked good 2 weeks ago. They both were awful this past week. And so you only have a few days to get started. I don't like any of those 2 guys going up against in a short week. Evan Ingram, Denver, he's only had 9 fantasy points in his last 2 games. So, and if Dallas has a strength on their defense, that's against tight ends. So I am going to sit him this week.
Very good. I think Haskins is actually out this week, if I remember right, too. He got banged up towards the end of the game this last week with the short.
Okay, so whoever's healthy, stay away.
Stay away. I like it. All right, there you go. That's the read option. Let's head into the red zone. All right, this week in the red zone, we are looking at fantasy players most likely to be impacted by the trade deadline. And the reason I want to bring this up is because now's a good time to start thinking about making a trade yourself to set yourself up for a player who's maybe not in a great situation now that you can go grab. If he gets moved, you have that advantage. Or maybe you've got a player that you think is going to be negatively impacted by the trade deadline, and so you need to move him off your team now while he still has some value and whatnot from there. So, Kevin, let's start with you on this one. Who are you thinking is going to be impacted by the trade deadline?
Okay, so I only have positive guys that'll be impacted, I think, fantasy-wise. And if he gets traded, the first one I'm going to go to is Chris Olave, the New Orleans wide receiver, who has 44 catches for 140 yards so far. He's played in all 7 games. And if New Orleans, they're going nowhere, they may not want to trade, the wide receiver that they have, but he's about the only guy on that team to me that's got value. He's in his 4th year, and so he's still young enough to step into another. I don't think there's an injury worry here right now. So if they make a move on him, you want him on your team. He's a quality wide receiver that I have always liked. He just needs somebody to throw him the football, and if he gets that, this guy could be all over the place coming down the stretch.
I like you. Brian, who do you think is going to be impacted?
So I'll say in New Orleans, I'm going to go with Rashid Shaheem. So there's both rumors that he could get traded, or like Kevin said, Olave is in toss for now. Kamara's been named brought a few times. There's a chance that the Saints move one or both of them out, and that elevates Shaheem on the depth chart of where he's going to be receiving wise. So whether he stays in New Orleans or not, he could bounce up the depth chart and become like a wide receiver 1 or 2 and get some really good looks. So I think he could have a really big, impact down the stretch.
I like it. Kevin, you got somebody outside of the Big Easy to talk about?
I do, and he was rumored he wanted to be traded before the season even began. That's Jacoby Meyers over there in Las Vegas. And the Raiders are awful. They got shut out, which they lost to Kansas City, which I can get behind that. Teams lose in Kansas City. Just ask Detroit. But they look awful in doing it. And so he's not going to want to, sign with them. He's already won out. So if they make a move on him and get him with a quality quarterback somewhere else, I could see him, getting some value, a lot of value.
Yeah.
As because right now there is no value on any of the wide receivers in Las Vegas or tight ends for that matter. So, my former, quarterback, Geno Smith, got pulled in that last game. And so this is not working out. So if this guy gets moved, and I see no reason why Las Vegas needs to hold on to him, move him out, get him on a quality team. And I would certainly look at, if he's on the waiver wire, go get him. If he's on somebody's team, go ask for him and see what you can work out.
I like it. Brian, who else you got?
I got David Njoku. So he's kind of in Cleveland right now, which is not a good offense situation. They don't know who their quarterback is. And Njoku might not even be the most, sought after tight end because Harold Fanning's on the roster and he's kind of jumped him. So Njoku can go somewhere fresh, not have the fear of this, hungry rookie behind him, and get a decent quarterback from him again. If all that happens, it will relax Njoku, let him, kind of get back in the swing of things, and maybe make him become a more reliable fantasy candidate for you week in and week out.
I was thinking tight end too. I was thinking Mark Andrews up in
That's a good one.
Especially with Likely now back. They're not using either tight end greatly anyhow. They're losing a bunch of games. There was already talk about him going. I think at teams like Philadelphia, who were sniffing around him at the draft, Los Angeles Chargers maybe. Gadsden's been playing decent down there, but that's an option too. So I think Mark Andrews is one that would benefit from a trade and could be much more valuable in that sense. And then I also think about Breece Hall in New York. If he does get moved, it's going to be good for him because if he gets traded, he's going to feel wanted. And right now he can't feel wanted there in New York. And it's just a horrible situation as far as losing and all this kind of stuff. And most likely, if he gets moved, it's going to be Chicago, which means it's going to negatively impact DeAndre Swift and even Monin guy. I don't know if I'm saying that name right or not. It looked great this past week. It's going to impact wherever Breece Hall goes. It's going to impact whoever's there, basically, is what I'm saying. And it's going to be very good for Breece Hall and probably pretty negative for everybody else around them as well. And those are those are the guys that came to mind for me as well. Any other guys you guys want to discuss on that?
Well, you guys have mentioned him because I had Breece Hall written down. And as awful as it's been, he's averaging 4.5 yards per carry.
Yeah.
So he can still get it done, but he has no TDs. And so 0-7. And this is a guy that we never expected would be even discussed as being – he was going to be the guy that they're going to help the Jets get back. But it's not happening. And Njoku is the other guy I have written down. Fannin is the wide receiver for this year and going forward. But Njoku has been injured, so he's going to have to show he's healthy. If he is and gets traded, that boosts his value all over the place.
Who was it when Breece Hall was drafted? The Jets, was it Michael Carter? The Jets had
Michael Carter.
That's right. It sure did.
And really, really well. They draft Breece Hall, and it's kind of like, wow, that kind of stinks for Carter. Carter ends up, he's had a few good games in Arizona, whatever, but it just seemed like Breece Hall was the answer in New York, and now they're so quickly to turn on him. So, oh well.
There's no answer in New York, period. So
there is none.
None whatsoever. And Ryan, our fellow associate over there, could he could tell us all about it. And so if I'm a team, I could have interest in Breece Hall. If I need a running back, maybe this. We mentioned the Chargers.
Yeah.
And it looked like that first game that Vidal was going to be maybe the man.
Yeah.
But I have no confidence in that whatsoever. And that team is really on the brink of going completely over the edge. So they need to make a move, I think.
Well, a team we don't talk about enough at the trade deadline is Kansas City. You look at their running back situation right now. Now, would the Jets trade with them? I don't know. But, I mean, Pacheco and Hunt, whatever. That'll be a massive upgrade there, too. If you're looking at teams that are trying to, make a push and whatnot from there. So, yeah. All right, guys, let's talk about our closing segment that is Beat the Bot. Beat the Bot is presented by Rotobot AI. Rotobot is an AI fantasy football platform that equips users to make decisions faster and smarter. Rotobot AI is able to recognize each user's unique scenario and tailor roster advice based on that. So it gives you start sits. It gives you trade advice, waiver wire advice, and all kinds of other things in between, including all kinds of great AI data elements as well. Download the Rotobot AI app and use the code BELLYUP to receive 1 free week of access to Rotobot AI. All right, on the season, Rotobot is 4-3. 4 wins this season. Kevin has 1 win. Brian has 2. I'm still at 0. I thought this was my week, guys. I thought this was it. I had Aaron Rodgers. The bot had Joe Flacco. Brian had Dylan Gabriel for the highest scoring AFC North quarterback this past week. And Rodgers had a decent game. I thought, yes. But Flacco, of course, Thursday night, he outscored Rodgers by 4 fantasy points. And so I'm still winless in this competition. This week, we're going to do something we have not done yet, and that is the highest scoring in defense this week. And the Rotobot AI has selected the Atlanta Falcons as the highest scoring defense this week. I am going to go with the Indianapolis Colts. Their matchup is a very nice matchup there with Tennessee. I've got them scoring 12 points, 12.2 points technically there. Kevin, who's your pick for the highest scoring defense this week?
My highest scoring defense is going to be the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Going up against the miracle that is the 49ers. At some point, that's going to come to a halt. And even though they lost the game yesterday, the Houston defense forced 3 turnovers and turned one of them into a touchdown. Yeah. And so I'm going to go with Houston. And depending on your scoring, I'm going to say they'll get 18 fantasy points.
Okay. Brian, who are you going with?
I'm going with New England's defense going up against rookie Dylan Gabriel, who has been not great to start his NFL career so far. And Patriots defense looks good. They have the third, I think the second most fantasy points this season. I think they have another big week this week against Dylan Gabriel and the Browns offense. I'll go like 14 points.
Okay, so we always give our point totals. It really only matters if we pick the same team, if we have point totals. But I wanted to point this out because last week, the Rotobot picked Joe Flacco, and they picked him at 26.6 points. He had 25.98. They were like right there on the dot. I had Aaron Rodgers. I predicted 22.8. He had 22.5. So I just wanted to put it out there that I may not have beat the bot, but I was pretty close on my prediction, at least of what Aaron Rodgers would score. And I was pretty proud of that at the very least, too. So, all right.
What if Dylan Gabriel was going to do that?
Again, make sure you go download the app. Why not? You get a free week. Download the app. Use the code BELLYUP. Get your free week. Check it out. You can attach it to your specific fantasy roster. So it gives you advice based completely off of your roster. You don't have to select it to your roster. But I love the trade grades and different things like that, the advice that it can give and throw out there. So check it out. There's no reason not to. Rotobot AI, Belly Up is the code to get that 1 week free there from them. And several of you have. And thank you for that. We appreciate that because it shows them that you heard about them here. We appreciate that very much, too. All right, guys. Week 8 of the NFL is where we are. Wild to believe it. Brian, tell everybody about what you got going on this week, content-wise, where they can find you at.
All right, 3rd and 10, new episode out today. If you know anything about 3rd and 10 podcast, you know it's a Giants podcast. So we had a lot to say about what transpired in Denver this past weekend. I'll leave it at that. If you want to know the conversation, check it out on the Belly Up YouTube. We'll have a new episode, of course, on Thursday, breaking down Giants, Eagles, like as always, and we'll do best bets for the week. And then, as always, you find me all my writings at BrianPG1016 on Twitter.
Awesome. All right, Kevin Wilson, what do you got going on this week?
Well, today happens to be the opening day of the NBA season, and I have an article out there. Where are the games? Who's playing? Where are they playing? When are they playing? That's out there, so check that out on the Belly Up website. Also at on Twitter, Kevin62, WILSEA. And I'm always answering questions about all these topics that we talked about, who to start, who to sit, what kind of defenses are we looking at. So you can always contact me there. And I think on Friday we're going to have a Seahawks Sessions show, even though they're on bye this week. We'll take a midseason look at where the Seahawks are sitting, which I'm very pleased because they're 5-2. So unless something drastic happens, look for that show to come out on Friday.
All right, very good. And I'll be on the Sports Stove Football Show Thursday. Me and Dad will be doing our normal picks. We pick 5 college football games and 6 NFL games, as well as give a survivor pick for you as well for your pool. And we've been pretty spot on with those so far. We're going to be talking about Billy Napier and how Florida treated him on his way out, winning the football game, and getting booed on his way out the field. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about UCLA's turnaround. We're going to be talking about some quarterback decisions in the NFL. What should New Orleans do? What should San Francisco do? What should the Jets do? All those good things coming up this week on the Sports Stove Football Show. Make sure you follow on socials at Sports Stove. I am dropping my up-to-date position big boards for the 2006 NFL Draft. The quarterback graphic went out today on Instagram, and so you can check that out at Sports Stove. Lots of change since the preseason big board, by the way. Many different names made this one than what made the preseason big board. So fun stuff going on there as well. Next week, we'll be right back here to talk fantasy football, get you ready for the NFL trade deadline, all that good stuff coming up next week. Make sure you check out bellyupsports.com for articles on all kinds of sports, NHL, NBA, NFL, college football, college basketball, and everything in between. World Series stuff, of course, as well. Check out Belly Up Sports YouTube for all the great highlight shows on the Belly Up Sports Network. And a reminder to check out Rotobot AI. Download it. Use the code BELLYUP to get a free week there. We sure appreciate you tuning in to this week's edition of the Belly Up Fantasy Football Show. Belly Up Live. Belly Up Fantasy Live Football.
You got it.
I'll get it right, guys. Don't worry. The Belly Up Fantasy Live Football Show. We'll see you next week. Good luck. Man, it's a tough bye week, so have fun with that this week.
Remember, 6 teams on bye, so keep that in mind.
There you go.